Welcome to the Kentucky Safe Flood Response Safety Webinar. I'm Lucas Alger, a safety consultant, and I will be your guide through this course. We will be covering various important aspects of how to safely respond to a flood, such as preparation, cleanup, and post-flood operations. Please pause and take a moment to read the following disclaimer. Floods are not limited to areas with a surrounding body of water. In fact, any area in the United States is susceptible to flooding, so it is important to have the proper awareness and preparation in case a flood occurs in your area. Staying prepared for a flood can reduce the amount of damage to property as well as prevent injuries and illnesses. It is important to take these steps when there is a chance for a flood in your area. There are several resources that are available to be notified when there is a potential inclement weather approaching. Text service, radio, social media apps, and local weather channels are all methods to receive the proper information before it occurs. Consider purchasing flood insurance if your area is more likely to flood. Be sure to have provisions, canned goods, medical supplies, first aid kits, potable water, batteries and chargers, etc. There is not a way to prevent a flood from occurring, as it is considered a natural disaster. With that, there are still precautions that can be used to minimize injuries and illnesses. If you are in an area that is flooding or already has flooded, there are several safety measures to keep in mind. Firstly, remain off of bridges as they can be washed away in an instant. Do not walk, swim, or drive through floodwaters. Next, move to higher elevation to remain above floodwaters. Lastly, do not become trapped in a basement or attic as the water could continue to rise. Mudslides occur during the midst of a flood, which is caused by water and flowing mud to cover surfaces which are dry land areas in normal conditions. Mud is quickly dispersed along the path of water current and could be unpredictable. When an area's flooding has ceased, that does not mean that there aren't still hazards. If you are a victim or a responder of the flood, there are several known safety and health strategies to minimize injuries and illnesses. It was mentioned that nobody should attempt to swim in floodwaters. Even good swimmers can be swept away by strong currents created by a flood. Additionally, when responding to floods, always work in teams of at least two and wear approved personal flotation devices or life jacket. After a flood has occurred, there is a high likelihood of power outages, polluted drinking water, damaged homes, and other infrastructure. There may also be numerous changes to the environment which may otherwise have remained the same for years. Such changes can pose new health and safety hazards that should be considered. Floodwater can introduce several hazards including, but not limited to, sharp objects, downed power lines, sewage, bacteria, chemicals, diseased insects, and wild or stray animals. If feasible, it is advised to keep away from floodwater in general, but for responders and people who want to help, it is important to be mindful of such hazards. Before returning to your residence after it has been affected by a flood, assure that local officials such as the health department have deemed it safe. Response and recovery is an essential step when responding to a flood-affected area. It is important to remain wary of common safety and health hazards such as electrical hazards, carbon monoxide, tree and debris removal, lifting injuries, mold, rodents, snakes and insects, chemical and biological hazards, fire, drowning, hypothermia, exhaustion, and heat stress. These are the more commonly known hazards, but other hazards may be present based on the environment. Electrical hazards are a very serious threat in an area that has experienced a flood. Among the most serious are electric shock and electrocution due to down-energized power lines. It is important to keep in mind that electrical currents and energized equipment are often not visible to the human eye, which makes it even more dangerous. A rule of thumb is always assume that an area with a down line is energized, as well as the surrounding equipment and building surfaces. Always remain cautious and aware of these circumstances, as well as communicating with others about the potential hazards. Do not attempt to work on downed or damaged power lines, as this is only to be done by properly trained electrical workers who have many hours of training. These workers must follow proper work practices and determine what personal protective equipment is appropriate. Carbon monoxide exposure is a common hazard related to post-flood operations, usually due to the use of generators, but can come from other sources such as vehicle exhaust, propane fuel, and other gasoline-powered equipment. Carbon monoxide is non-irritating, which means a person could be affected without realizing it. This is usually the reason that it leads to such severe health effects, such as carbon monoxide poisoning, which can cause brain damage, comas, and even death. If you notice a person experiencing headaches, dizziness, drowsiness, nausea, vomiting, or tightness in the chest, it could mean that they are experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning. As mentioned, generators are a common source of carbon monoxide exposure. It is important to never use generators indoors or in enclosed areas with poor ventilation. Always ensure that a generator has 3 to 4 feet of clear space above and on all sides to provide adequate ventilation. The location of a generator is important, so be cautious not to place generators near windows or doors where carbon monoxide could enter a building. Be advised of potential chemical hazards in the floodwater, as pipes and storage containers may break, releasing their contents. After a flood, it is common to observe debris and downed trees. Common hazards related to removal include electrocution from collapsed power lines, falls from heights when removing a tree, struck by a falling tree limb or other debris, and injuries related to operating equipment, such as chainsaws and chippers. It is important to be mindful when using such equipment and understanding what the correct PPE is. Other equipment involved in tree and debris removal include power tools. Not all power tools are designed to be used outdoors or in wet conditions, so it is important to read labels on the tools and read the manufacturer's manual. Most tools come with safety features like guards and working controls, so always assure that a tool has not been modified and that it can be used safely without posing additional hazards. When selecting personal protective equipment, or PPE, it is imperative that the operator wear specific gear like gloves, chaps, hard hats, face shields, earplugs, and hard-toed safety shoes. These are all necessary selections when performing debris removal. Ergonomic lifting injuries are commonly overlooked as a common hazard for flood preparation and cleanup activities. Often these tasks can lead to injuries to a person's back, knee, shoulder, or other body part involved in lifting heavy objects. Proper lifting techniques should be followed and team lifting should be used to move bulky or heavy items to avoid sprains and strains. Molds are microscopic organisms found everywhere in the environment, indoors and outdoors. In large numbers, mold spores may potentially cause adverse health effects. Mold growth is common after flooding events, and it is important to remember that mold tends to grow in damp areas indoors. When flooding occurs, mold will attempt to grow where water damage has occurred or where dampness has been allowed to persist. This dampness does not necessarily have to be where water flooded into, but potentially in an area where water vapor has aggregated when floodwaters recede. It can also occur in areas with high humidity, hot weather, or differences in temperature between substrates. The health effects of mold exposure tend to mimic symptoms of other respiratory diseases. Some of these health effects are sneezing, coughing and congestion, a runny nose, aggravation of asthma, eye irritation, and dermatitis, commonly known as a skin rash. Since the health effects of mold are like other respiratory diseases and allergy symptoms, many people overlook mold as being a potential cause of their symptoms. Millions of Americans are affected by mold growth in their homes and workplaces every year, and many of those affected may be unaware of the mold causing their illnesses. Mold typically thrives between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the typical climate range for a home or workplace to be kept. Floodwaters and dampness, along with the indoor climate control of buildings, establishes the ideal environment for mold to grow. It is important to keep mold in mind when these sort of health effects are seen, that if these health effects persist for a significant period, it may be wise to investigate the potential for mold growth being present in your home or workplace. Even if a flood hasn't occurred, mold may be present in a building. Water leaks into drywall and HVAC systems are common, unexpected occurrences where mold can grow and go unnoticed for prolonged periods of time. The people at greatest risk of mold-related health effects are those individuals with allergies, asthma, sinusitis, and other lung diseases or weakened immune systems such as HIV patients. For a more in-depth guide to mold-related health and safety, please scan the QR code on this slide. This will take you to our mold webinar. Floods can introduce a variety of pests and animals into homes and businesses, including rodents, snakes, and insects. After a flood, it's crucial to eliminate standing water and debris as these are prime breeding grounds for pests. Use dehumidifiers and exhaust fans to dry out the home and prevent infestations. Snakes may be displaced during floods and can be found in areas like attics or under debris. They may be more aggressive due to stress, so it's important to handle them with care. Insects like mosquitoes and flies can breed in stagnant water. Remove food sources and store them securely to prevent attracting these pests. By taking these precautions, you can help protect your home from the potential damage and health risks associated with these pests and animals after a flood. Protective layers are necessary when encountering insects and rodents. Long-sleeve shirts and pants, as well as socks, can provide protection from insects' bites and stings. Insect repellent is also recommended. Rats are disease-carrying creatures, which means that you must use gloves or avoid areas with infestation if possible. Additionally, it is important to keep your hands and equipment sanitized, especially before eating or using tobacco products to avoid ingestion. Although floods involve copious amounts of water, the likelihood of fire hazards can increase due to several factors. Fire protection systems can become damaged, which may decrease the effectiveness and efficiency. Emergency responders could become delayed due to the changing of the environment and introduce traveling hazards. Lastly, water distribution systems, which are used to suppress fires, may become disrupted or unusable. In colder areas or seasons, hypothermia can also be introduced as an underlying hazard. Body heat will become removed faster than replaced, resulting in body temperature to rapidly drop. Various signs can be identified in a person who is experiencing hypothermia, such as uncontrollable shivering, slow speech, memory lapses, frequent stumbling, drowsiness, and exhaustion. If you notice anyone experiencing one or more of these symptoms, seek help from a nearby medical professional or call 911. Like many other hazards, hypothermia can be minimized by taking the correct precautions and selecting the proper personal protective equipment. Bring more than enough clothing so that you may take off layers as needed for the changing temperatures. Allow yourself to take breaks in warm, heated areas. If possible, schedule work to be done in the warmest time of the day and consume warm food and beverages. Consider a toolbox talk or pre-work discussion about the danger of hypothermia. On the other side of the spectrum is heat stress. Floods occur in hot environments too, which introduce a different spread of heat-related illnesses. Heat exhaustion is the most common health issue during this scenario. When identifying someone who is experiencing heat exhaustion, look for symptoms such as headaches, nausea, dizziness, confusion, and heavy sweating. If heat exhaustion is not addressed immediately, it could lead to more severe health conditions. A more serious result of heat stress can lead to heat stroke. Heat stroke is when the body's temperature rises to levels greater than 104 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a serious medical emergency if untreated, and it could result in death. Symptoms of heat stress include confusion, loss of consciousness, and seizures. If you notice anyone experiencing heat stress symptoms, call 911 and attempt to cool them down with shade and cold towels until help arrives. While waiting for responders, attempt to remove outer clothing and provide cold drinking water if they can drink. Remember to protect yourself from heat illness. Refresh your knowledge and monitor how you are feeling in addition to others. If feasible, attempt to work in shaded areas or out of direct sunlight. It is good practice to remain hydrated daily. Emphasize this practice by drinking more than enough water while working and keep water available for yourself and others. When selecting clothing, assure that it is appropriate for hot weather and is lightweight and breathable. Exhaustion can occur in any environment, hot or cold. This usually occurs in people who work extended hours and under stressful circumstances. Exhaustion can affect the cognitive ability of a worker, which may increase the risk of injuries or accidents. It is important to assure that you and other workers are getting regular breaks, water, rest, and consuming nutritious food that can provide sustainable energy to continue to work safely. Fatigue is a natural cue from your body that it needs rest. Symptoms that are projected can include sleepiness, irritability, reduced alertness, and loss of appetite. Fatigue can create an unsafe employee due to the lack of alertness and focus. If you or coworkers are suffering from fatigue, consider allowing time off for rest, additional breaks, and only work extended shifts when it's completely necessary. Under stressful work environments, it is natural for people to experience mental health challenges, which can be worked through with the proper resources. For an expanded look at mental health and suicide awareness, please scan the QR code. For more free online learning opportunities, please visit our website. Thank you for watching this presentation.